Calvin, can you please confirm that you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you.
Hey, Robin, are we? Okay. It is now 6:30. Okay. All righty. Good evening, everyone. This evening is our monthly meeting of the Board of Adjustment. We are committed to a transparent process and encouragement of public comment during our meeting here. We will be accepting testimony from all parties. If you wish to testify on any particular petition before us this evening using the Zoom platform, please use the raise hand feature. You can raise your hand at any time and we will recognize you at the appropriate time for the presentation of evidence for each case. If, however, you're in person, please hand a staff member a speaker's card, and Planner Robin Keefe will be moderating the hybrid meeting and will be asked to provide names of those individuals that wish to speak. I would like to call the meeting of the City of Wildwood's Board of Adjustment to order. The board members present today are Mr. Morris, board member, Mr. Reiner, alternate member, Mr. Lee, board member, Mr. Lutz, board member, and myself, Arnie Sprunger, acting chair. The Department of Planning staff present is Mr. Joe Vunich, Director of Planning, and Robin Keefe, planner. City Attorney John Young and Court Reporter Courtney Tallman are also present on Zoom. First of all, I would offer into the record the affidavit of publication pertaining to today's meeting, September 19th, 2024, and take official notice of the zoning ordinance of City of Wildwood, including Chapter 400, Article 2, authorizing and establishing the Board of Adjustment's powers and duties. Now, let me explain the hearing procedure. First, be aware the information I'm about to describe is also provided on the Board of Adjustment public hearing procedure handout, which was available online prior and up to tonight's meeting. This meeting is informal in its nature. However, the meeting's procedures will be recorded by a reporter for future transcription if needed. The petitions are called in the order listed on the agenda. As the petition is called, I will ask a Department of Planning staff member to read each request into the record. Thereafter, the Department of Planning will have opening remarks and a brief slide presentation. Then the petitioner or their representative will be asked to state their name and address, be sworn in by the court reporter, make a brief presentation to the board explaining the nature of the requested variance, and present such evidence and witness testimony that may evidence the practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship that warrant the variance. The board will only consider the unique character of the property to determine whether they warrant the granting of a variance. Board members may ask questions to clarify the facts of the petitioner's presentation. When the board is satisfied with the material presented by the petitioner, I will then ask if there is anyone present or online who would like to speak in favor or opposition to the requested variance. Each speaker will be asked to provide their name and address, be sworn in, and then provide their evidence and oral testimony. Procedurally, the petitioner may request a continuance at any time during the hearing, prior to a call for the vote, in order to bring in additional evidence or testimony. The board may also continue the proceedings. After the submission of testimony and evidence from all interested parties, the board will ask a staff person to provide the Department of Planning's report on this matter, if requested by any member of the board, the petitioner, or any individual that is participating in person or online. Once all witnesses have been heard, I will call for a motion to grant or deny with or without exceptions or conditions rather, excuse me, then the board will vote. At that time, the presentation of evidence relating to the petition is concluded and no further evidence will be permitted. The board may make a decision today. 4 members of the board must vote in favor of the variance for it to be approved. If a variance is approved, the petitioner has 6 months to obtain the necessary permits or establish the use, or it will expire. If the board's decision is unfavorable, the petitioner has the right of appeal to the St. Louis County Circuit Court. This appeal must be done within 30 days of the decision. Okay. Ms. Keefe, are there any questions at this time?
This time, if you are all online, please use the raise hand feature if you have a question.
See a hand, we must have a question. They should be on the back table there. If not, just let one of the staff folks know and they'll make sure you get some. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, hearing no other questions at this time, the meeting will proceed. And if a staff member would please read the first request into the record, which will be followed by a brief slide presentation, if desired by the board members, and I'm sure we will.
Mr. Chair, before I read the first request into the record, I would just note that there's coffee and water over on the east wall of the council chambers, and they're for anybody who would like. Thank you.
Thank you.
The first request tonight is BA 17-24 Arrow Senior Living, 251 Plaza Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040, care of Bill Elder, Image 360, St. Louis West, 2118 Shoots Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63005. Requests an exception to the business signs attached to wall for the purpose of erecting 2 wall signs attached to the building, one on the eastern facade and one on the northern facade, with such being located upon the property at 251 Plaza Drive, locator number 23V220260, Wildwood Town Center, Plat 2, Lots 1 and 2, Lot 1, which would thereby authorize lettering heights of 34 inches in lieu of the required 24 inches, internal lighting sources in lieu of required external lighting types, and displays of lettering that are not of the pinned-on type required by the Town Center Plans guidelines. These sign requirements are stipulated by Chapter 415.420, Sign Regulations of all C&M districts of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 415.190, C8 Plan Commercial District Regulations of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance, and amended C8 Plan Commercial District number 2200. This request is also to be reviewed by the Architectural Review Board at its September 12, 2024 meeting, as required by Chapter 415.400, Sign Regulations General. This particular property is located in Ward 8. And before Ms. Keefe begins the slide presentation, the department would like to introduce into the record the following. Chapter 400, Article 2 of the City of Wildwood Zoning Municipal Code, Board of Adjustment. Chapter 415 of the same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the zoning ordinance, file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this particular request, and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation. And then finally, any evidence or testimony offered at tonight's hearing on this particular item. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Keefe?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, our first case this evening concerns a proposal for new wall signage for a senior living facility, both signs of which require a variance. The subject site is located within the Wildwood Town Center on the north side of Plaza Drive and west of Fountain Place. It is just south of Highway 100 and it is within eyesight of City Hall. The subject lot is 1.65 acres in size, and the primary access to it is via Plaza Drive into the parking area. The applicant tonight is requesting a variance to the lettering height of 2 proposed wall signs. While other variances were initially requested, the applicant has since modified their plans, which have been provided to you, in a way that does not require them. The department's recommendation report was written prior to these modifications. The city's sign regulations do require that all signs requesting variance or requiring a variance go before the Architectural Review Board for its comments, suggestions, and recommendations. This was done on September 12th of this month. And the Architectural Review Board, in reviewing the proposed signage, noted that it supported the larger size of the lettering, but would prefer the sign to be halo lit, which has since been taken into account by the applicant. The applicant has modified their plans. The new plans do propose pinned on lettering on a white backer pan. This lettering is to be halo lit at night with a 4,000 Kelvin color temperature. And the sign is still to be 34 inches in lieu of 24 inches, which is permitted by code. And this is, according to the applicant, to better and more proportionately fit the space for it on the building. There are our first location for sign 1 is on the northern facade. And this is a rendering of what it would look like provided by the applicant. The second location is on the eastern facade. And here is a rendering of what it would look like. This is the details pertaining to the lettering and the mounting system. And these are examples of halo lit signs as provided by the applicant. This is looking west. The senior living facility is on the left of this photo. This is Highway 100, and this is a multi-use path parallel to it. This is the northern facade of the building. The signage featured in this photo is temporary. It's a placeholder signage. It is not the signage you are considering this evening. This is looking south at that northern facade. Again, that is the temporary signage. This is looking west at the eastern facade of the building that's recessed at the entrance. And this is looking west at the eastern facade located along Fountain Place, where the fountain is located in Town Center. This is the southern facade of the building along Plaza Drive. And finally, just to give you a landmark, we're looking southeast at the Wildwood Hotel, standing at the corner of Fountain Place and Plaza Drive. That concludes my presentation at this time. If the board members have any questions, Director Vunich and I are available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. Are there any questions by any of the board members at this time?
Just given the change in the application, could you quickly run through your recommendation changes, if there are any, compared to what was shared earlier?
Initially, Board Member Lux, we had recommended against the request for not installing individual pin lettering and the type of lighting. Those two have been changed. The department did support the increase in the lettering height to accommodate what we consider is a fairly unique building in terms of mass and scale. and the taller lettering allows for it to be more proportional.
Okay, so then the recommendation would be to approve as applied with no contingencies.
Yes, the recommendation now of the department would be to support the variance based upon the changes that have been introduced to the side package.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the department? Okay, not seeing any others. At this time, I'd like to call the petitioner forward. And if you would state your name, your address, and relationship to the property, and then be sworn in by the court reporter.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Bill Elder. Address for the business is 2118 Shoots Road. It was actually typo or maybe my mistake earlier, but it's St. Louis, Missouri 63146. We are the sign company that's going to be fabricating the sign and installing for Aero Senior Living.
Okay, we're going to get you sworn in by the court reporter.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So,
So what we're asking you to do at this point is just to explain the nature of the request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating the variance.
So Aero Senior Living is a senior living organization that owns multiple properties across multiple states. Their branding is very important to them and their individual properties. And in this situation, their branding, their logo incorporates the whole logo mark and the text involved on the sign. And in order to get that to a readable size, specifically from Highway 100, it needs to be, we need to maximize it in the space available on the building. If you can, one of the images that was shown earlier of their temporary signage that was viewed from, it looked like maybe halfway between in the easement. You can't even read it from there. And that's what we would have to make in accordance to the city's sign code currently. So the hardship would be that the sign is, you cannot read it from the highway. If you know, they need to incorporate their brand onto their building, that's an important thing for them. And they want their clients and people visiting the clients to be able to read and see what the building is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Elder.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Elder at this time from any of the board members? No, I don't see any. Okay. Thank you, sir. You are free to sit down again. And at this time, we'll open the floor to any person that would like to speak in favor or opposition to the request. Okay, I do not see anyone. Therefore, would anyone like to, well, actually, we'd like to hear an oral presentation of the department's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the board, as mentioned in response to board members Lux's question, the department is supporting the remaining variance request, which is the increase in the lettering height. We believe that it is important to have a sign that represents the mass and scale of the building. And in this case, the additional lettering height will achieve at least partially that goal. And we do want to thank the applicant and the applicant's representative for working with the city and addressing the other two components to bring them in compliance. If there are any questions of the department be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Are there any questions for the department? Okay. Well, at this time, we are going to then close the proceeding for a vote. Are there any comments that any of the board members would like to make before we make a motion? No? Okay, so at this time, I'm going to ask for a call for a vote, either a motion to approve, deny, or approve with conditions.
I'll go ahead and motion to approve.
Mr. Lux, you make a motion to approve the variance request. with the changes that were made,
The updated.
the
request, yes.
updated version. Yes. Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Reiner seconds. So now we shall vote. Mr. Morris, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Lee?
Approve.
Mr. Reiner? Mr. Lux?
Approve.
And I also approve. Congratulations, your variance request has been approved. Hey, at this time, if we could have the second request read into the record, which will be followed by a brief presentation.
Certainly, sir. The second request on tonight's agenda is BA 18-24, William and Judith Schultz, 18621 Hart Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038, requests an exception to the minimum yard requirements general for the purpose of constructing a two-car attached garage, 620 square feet in area, upon the property being located at 18621 Hart Road, locator number 23X140036, which would thereby authorize a front yard setback distance of 34 feet in lieu of 50 feet and a southwestern side yard setback distance of 23 feet 6 inches in lieu of the required 30-foot standard. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415.090 NU Non-Urban Resident District regulations. This particular property is located in Ward 1. And again, before Ms. Keefe begins the slide presentation on the property, the department would like to enter into the record the following. Chapter 400, Article 2, Board of Adjustment of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code. Chapter 415, the zoning ordinance of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, a file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this particular request, and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation, and then finally, any evidence or testimony that is offered as part of tonight's hearing on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. And now Ms. Keefe, if you would give us a presentation.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, our next case concerns an attached garage addition that will allow the petitioners to expand upon the amount of living space in their home. The subject site is located north of Highway 100 and along Hart Road, which is a city-maintained roadway. The subject lot is rectangular in shape and narrow, with 102 feet of width and 532 feet of depth on it. It is 1.19 acres in size, which is less than the 3-acre minimum required by the non-urban residence district zoning designation, which is required, which also is the designation of this lot. Occupying the lot is a legal non-conforming single-family dwelling that was built in 1965 and has 864 feet of total living area. The property does have a varied topography and is steeply sloped. It slopes downward from Hart Road to the center of the lot and then trends northeast with 60 feet of total relief. Most of the lot is heavily wooded. The front of it is more gently sloped and consists of lawn area around the dwelling. The petitioner is requesting a 34-foot front yard setback in lieu of 50 feet and a 24-foot side yard setback in lieu of the 30 feet required by the non-urban residence zoning district. And again, this is to construct an attached garage to their home, which is 620 square feet in total area, which would allow them to convert the existing attached garage into living space. This is the proposed floor plan, which shows that the existing attached garage will contain a mudroom, a kitchen area, a living area, and dining area within it, and the 2-car garage will then be towards the front of the residence. These are the two elevations of the home with the addition provided by the applicants. This is looking northwest at the front of the home as it is today. And this is looking northwest, particularly at the attached garage. This is looking southwest across the front yard of the property. And this is looking northwest towards the neighboring lot next to the attached garage. This is looking north. And this is looking southeast towards the attached garage, which is right here. So we're moving towards the rear of the home. This is looking northeast at the rear of the dwelling and the improvements that are located there. This is looking northeast to give you more of a sense of the rear yard. This is looking northeast towards the other side of the home. And this is looking north at the other side yard. This is standing back where the dwelling is located and looking south at the neighbor across the street. And this is a closer view of what their residence looks like to give you a sense of some of the architectural style of some of the homes surrounding. In this case, both affected neighbors have indicated support for the project, as well as two others in the general vicinity. It should be noted that that this home or this property has been granted a variance in the past for the eastern side yard setback. The variance that was granted was 25 feet in lieu of 30 feet for constructing another addition to the home. And that concludes my presentation at this time. Director Vunich and I are available to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Keith. Are there any questions from the board or the department? No? Okay, at this time then, I would like to call the petitioner forward and ask that you state your name, your address, relation to the property, and then you'll be sworn in by the court reporter.
Okay, yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm William Schultz. I own the property at 18621 Hart Road in Wildwood, Missouri.
Okay, and then we'll get you sworn in by the court reporter.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schultz, if you would then explain the nature of your request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating the variance.
Sure. My wife and I purchased this home in June for our retirement home. And we just love the property, the way it's laid out, with the way it's a narrower lot than our other neighbors and so forth, but we have a definite tree barrier down each side property. So we looked at it. The 1-car garage is not really a standard 1-car garage. So we had the thought of adding the 2-car garage and converting that space to give us a little more room in the living room and a little more space in the kitchen. We looked at adding something onto the side to stay out of the front setback, which is we're requesting that be reduced down to 34 feet. And if in the photographs that Ms. Robin showed, that there's quite a slope there, which would have involved more excavation and retaining wall system in order to support that garage. And so that's why we're asking that we could just attach it to the front of the house We also have adjusted the elevation to over the entry area and the garage. We want the house to blend in to the neighborhood.
Mhm.
And then, also, we will be encroaching into the side property line. It's an interesting lot. Lines are at an angle to how the house is placed on the lot. So we're asking that side property line be reduced down to, I'm sorry, 6 feet less. So there's 24-foot setback. The whole distance, though, is as you go deeper into the lot from the front of the garage actually gets more on our property and out of the setback. So it's not like we're encroaching that full distance of the garage. And we've talked to neighbors on each side and they're supportive. Talked to the neighbor across the street and he supported us. And we were also able to talk to a neighbor down the street and he was supportive as well. We just feel that the nature of the neighborhood and everything, that our project's not really inconsistent with what the rest of the neighborhood's like. We're not trying to build something monument there that doesn't belong there.
Mhm.
And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can for the board.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schultz. And I commend you. I think you did a good job of reaching out to your neighbors
Thank you.
and getting their input.
Thank
It's
you
a-
very much.
It's a good idea.
Yes, we want to be good neighbors since
Yeah, it's a
we
good
plan
thing.
on being here a while, so.
All right, thank you. Okay, so are there any questions by any of the board members for Mr. Schultz? No? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You may sit down.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, at this point, is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak in favor or in opposition to the request? If so, this would be the time. Ms. Keefe, do we have anything online? No? Yes?
Mr. Chair, we do have one participant online. I do not see a raised hand. And I still don't see a raised hand.
Okay, all right. No one in the audience, okay. In that case, if the department would like to provide an oral presentation of their recommendation and the report, that would be great.
Are you sure you want an oral presentation of the report? Member Lux doesn't look
Yeah.
like he would.
No. All
All
right,
right, in that
any,
case, I'm happy to provide the department's comments.
any final comments by the department?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, the department is supporting this variance. There is a hardship to this applicant, given that the home was built in 1965. And we're applying the non-urban zoning district to a lot that is very substandard in size and very narrow as well. Which restricts the building footprint of it. It's a very modest, very small sized home for the area and what's surrounding. And this is a fairly modest addition to it. And it is logical, given the layout of the home. We did look into potentially having it more flush with the existing garage, but as the applicant showed you, and as you saw in the photos, the department showed in its slideshow presentation, it's a little sloped there, making it hard to build. This is a non-uniform building pattern area of Wildwood. The road is very windy. We don't think it will be out of character with Hart Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. Are there any final comments that any of the board members would like to make at this time? Mr. Lee, yes.
Yeah, this question will be staff. Joe, do you know if there were any setback criteria in 1965?
Well, prior to 1965, the minimum lot area in this particular location was 1 acre, which explains why it's just a little over 1 acre in size. And as I recall, I think the setback distances at that time were somewhere around 20 to 25 feet.
Any other questions or comments? No? All right, at this time, we'll close the proceeding and we will ask for a vote. Could I have a motion to approve, deny, or approve with conditions? Mr. Lee,
I'll make a motion to approve.
do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Morris, seconds. So we shall now do a roll call. Mr. Reiner, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Morris?
Approve.
Mr. Lee?
Approve.
Mr. Lux?
Approve.
And I also approve. Your variance has been granted. Congratulations, good luck. We could read the third request into the record.
Yes, Mr. Chair. BA 19-24 Quikrete LLC has been postponed by the petitioner. So the next item on the agenda is BA 20-24 James Bell, 543 Nantucket Point Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040. Requests an exception to the minimum yard requirements general, miscellaneous regulations, and the requirements set forth in the approved planned environment unit, PEU, ordinance number 15134 and 15232 for the purposes of expanding an existing driveway, with such being located upon the property at 543 Nantucket Point Drive, locator number 24U 121011, Nantucket subdivision, plat 6, lot 41C, thereby authorizing a southern side yard setback distance of 1 foot 9 inches in lieu of 6 feet. This request is contrary to the requirements of chapter 415.140 R3 10,000 square foot resident district regulations of the city of Wildwood zoning ordinance, chapter 415.380 miscellaneous regulations of the city of Wildwood zoning ordinance, and planned environment unit, PEU ordinance number 15134, approved by St. Louis County Council in 1990 and 15232 thereafter. This particular property is located in Ward 7, and as with the first two requests, before Ms. Keefe begins the slide presentation, the department would like to enter into the record the following items. Chapter 400, Article 2 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Board of Adjustment. Chapter 415 of the same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the zoning ordinance, file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this particular request, and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation. And then finally, any evidence or testimony offered as part of tonight's hearing on this particular matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Ms. Keefe?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, our next case is regarding a request for a driveway expansion from a two-car driveway to a three-car driveway. All right, the subject lot is located in the Nantucket subdivision in the southwestern portion of Wildwood. The lot is 0.21 acres in size and was platted in 1992. It is located on the eastern side of Nantucket Point Drive, which is a public roadway 50 feet in width. The lot has 25 feet of frontage along it. And the Nantucket subdivision, as noted, was platted as a planned environmental unit by St. Louis County. And so like the Wildwood similar plan development overlay district, the homes in this case are clustered more tightly together, surrounded by large tracts of common area, which is why we have a denser land pattern here. Here are the petitioner's plans for the expansion. Their plan is to add an additional 8 feet of width to the existing driveway. This would take it within 1 foot 9 inches of the southern property line. So it would be 1 foot 9 inches setback in lieu of the 6 feet that's required for this lot for the ordinance. I did want to note that there are a couple easements upon this property. There is a front yard easement of 10 feet, and there is also a 5-foot easement in that same side yard setback area. It serves a transformer that's owned by Ameren, Missouri, who has provided a letter noting that this request would not be impacting their access to that transformer or its function in any way. So we have received that signage. The applicant has also submitted a letter of conditional approval from the Homeowners Association that has also been included in their application package. Here we're looking northeast at the front of the residence. We're also looking northeast, but this is standing a little further back to give you a sense of where that expansion is going to go between these two residences. And then again, this is looking east, giving you a different perspective. This is looking south at Nantucket Point Drive. And this is looking north. This is the affected neighbor's residence looking southeast. And these are some other residences in the general vicinity that have either 3-car driveways or an expanded driveway with parking pad. Here it just looks like the driveway was widened a bit on both sides. The public support for this request has been mixed. Five people have written in support of the request, and generally they are clustered in that same area as the petitioner's residence, which is featured in yellow. So you can see all these people are in support. We've also received 4 written comments against, some of which are in that general area and some of which are a little further away, but within that notification area. The most affected neighbor by the request has written and spoken to me directly, and they have indicated that they are neutral and just ask that the board give it its due diligence in reviewing the request. The HOA, which again did provide a letter of conditional approval to the applicant, which was submitted with their application, has written to the board. You've received that letter not supporting the variance request. That concludes my presentation at this time. If you have any questions for the department, Director Bunich and I are available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. Are there any questions by any of the board members?
I have a question. How far is the back of the driveway to that transformer?
The rear of the driveway,
Yeah,
or
it's like stop.
because the driveway is being expanded pretty much to that transformer. I would have to look at the plans to give you an exact number, and I can come back or the applicant can answer
You can
that.
address
Yep. Thank you.
I also have a question. You had provided a number of other homes that have a 3rd-car drive. Do any of those homes, is the 3rd-car drive in any of those homes in the setback? Or are they all outside of the setback?
The department did not perform that analysis.
Okay.
That would have required to look at each survey of the home and then compare it. We were looking primarily at, are there other homes with 3-car garages to where, you know, I guess suppose as a mitigating factor of expanding this driveway in this instance.
Okay. All right,
Because
thank
that
you.
would show that there is some standard for it and then.
Yeah, so there's other examples.
Right.
It's not like this would be the only one.
Correct.
There are others in the subdivision. Yeah, I was just curious if they were in the setback or not. Okay, thank you.
I have another question. I just want to make a clarification. So the HOA conditionally approved it initially, and now there's a letter saying that they don't approve the variance, correct?
Yes, they issued a letter to the applicant directly, giving them conditional approval for the driveway, providing they meet a list of items that are standard in those types of instances, from the indentures.
And dentures don't specifically speak to the expanded driveway.
That's what I understand, both from the homeowners association and from the applicant.
Thank you.
Perhaps we'll hear from the HOA later. Anyway, any other questions for the department by any of the board members? No? Okay, thank you, Ms. Keefe. So at this time, if the petitioner could come forward and give us your name, your address, and your relationship to the property, and then we'll get you sworn in by the court reporter.
My name is James Bell. I'm the owner of 543 Nantucket Point Drive in Wildwood.
Please raise your right hand.
And
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Bell. If you would explain the nature of the request and the hardship or practical difficulty that requires a variance.
Okay. I am looking, Robin had said 8 foot. That was the initial thing that I sent the subdivision just to make it easier. Once I had to go farther into more technical stuff, I measured my distance off of the foundation of the garage. So it's 6 foot 11 inches instead of the 8 foot. Still ends at the same spot. Just wanted to correct that. But I moved in 2010. Had one son. Emmerich was born in 2012. Found out he had a couple rare genetic conditions in 2014. So not something we planned on when we moved in the house. Obviously, we wouldn't have bought a 2-story house if we had a child in a wheelchair. So since we've moved there, we've spent 68 grand in home improvements with updating the outside of the house, making it more energy efficient with HVAC, wrapping the house, new windows, just trying to make it a more comfortable living condition. Since we've had Emmerich and had a bunch of other things, just in the house itself, we spent $29,000 modifying things inside, which includes a walk-in shower and other things like that, converting a room in the main floor to a bedroom, as well as just recently in July, we had a concrete walkway ramp and then a composite ramp on the front porch so that we can now get his chair into the house. He is now 72 pounds. That would allow us to use our Hoyer lift to help save our backs as we're moving him from bed and to his wheelchair. We also had to spend $57,000 on a handicap accessible van. So we have spent a lot of money modifying the house itself, as well as making the general house look good. My 17-year-old now has his driver's license. So we will soon be getting a 4th vehicle. 12-year-old has his own vehicle. So I always have 2 cars in the garage. Always my truck sits out in the driveway. If we would park our 4th vehicle in that open spot in the driveway, then all that money we spent on a ramp to get to the house would be for nothing, because we wouldn't be able to access it with that car parked right there against the walkway. Let's see. Reasoning for the 6 foot 11 inch expansion. That gives me 17 foot from the center of the driveway to the edge of that expansion. Which gives me about 8 foot, 8 inches per vehicle that I'm gonna park there, and that's only about a foot extra. So that's a foot on each side of that vehicle extra. So there'd be like 2 feet in between the cars. Still not a lot of room to get in and out and load bags and stuff like that. I've gone online, propark.com, Asphalt Kingdom. The standards for most parking spaces are generally 8 to 9.5 foot. So that is why I'm looking to widen it to that 6 foot 11 inches. And to answer your question about the transformer, the transformer is going to sit behind the driveway, but the driveway is going to be right up to that concrete pad. So it's basically going to kind of diagonal, not touch, but be right there. So the driveway will come over and go straight. And half of that transformer concrete pad is on my property. That's the 21 inches of grass or easement. So, but with Emmerich being 72 pounds, we have a bunch of nurses. We have a couple nurses. Sometimes we have 2 nurses there at the same time. That takes up the parking in front of our house, as well as the bus, handicapped bus that picks him up for school. So I'm just trying to be a courteous neighbor, get that 4th vehicle off of the street. That way it's easier for my neighbor to back out. It's easier for the nurses to park. That gives, if my son's gone, that gives the nurse a spot to park off the street as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
I thought you had one other question.
I was just regarding the homeowners association indentures.
Yeah, and I submitted that, what our indentures say about the driveways and stuff like that. It does not, according to what I read in there, there's nothing about against expanding a driveway. It just tells you driveways are concrete only, no permeable driveways, no painted, no colored driveways, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bell from the board? Actually, I think I may have one.
Okay.
So you have 2 vehicles in the garage.
Yes.
If the variance is granted, you'd have 3 additional, albeit maybe a little bit cozy or close, spots for vehicles.
Yeah.
Is one of those vehicles the van?
The van is in the garage all the time. Only use it when
Okay,
we're traveling with him
got it.
or when a vehicle's in the shop.
Okay, okay.
But the 4th vehicle would be the new vehicle that we purchased with a 4th drive, with my son being a new driver. So we'll have the 3 vehicles that we currently have plus 1 more.
Okay, and
So
then you'd
4
have
total.
then an extra spot.
So that extra spot would park 2 there, 1 where my truck was, 1 on the right side. And that will still leave that handicap ramp into the house where the walkway is open. Because if you park that car there, then there's no room between the grass and the driveway to roll his chair.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification. In the HOA's letter, and maybe you can speak to part of this. One of the things that they pointed out was that other people in the neighborhood, they just park on the street. There are extra vehicles on the street, and they said that's perfectly fine. Have you considered that as an option?
Well, as I said, there's sometimes, and I submitted a picture on a day that we had both of the nurses there.
Mhm.
2 cars takes up the whole space in front of my house without blocking the mailbox. So if that car was parked on the street and those 2 nurses were there, then somebody has to park elsewhere. And I mean, I know it's my opinion. I drive a large vehicle for a living, and driving in and out of subdivisions with cars parked on the street is more of a hindrance than it is without it.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Bell? No? Thank you, sir. return to your seat. This time, I'd like to open the floor to any persons that would like to speak in favor or in opposition to, or online as well. I'm just sure, sir. Come on up and give your card to one of the staff members.
Okay,
please
my name-
state your name
My name is Richard Weber,
and your address and
538
relationship to the property.
Nantucket Point. I live across the street from James.
You live across the street.
Yes.
Okay. And you're going to
And,
be sworn in by the court reporter.
okay,
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, yeah, I just want to say that I'm totally in favor of Mr. Bell's petition. Less cars on the street is better for the subdivision. Probably makes his property more valuable, and that's good for the subdivision, everybody around, and in effect, good for Wildwood also. Speaking of his son's condition, I can speak to that. My wife is handicapped, and she's in a wheelchair, so she's got a special seat in the car, a chair lift in the back, and the more space you have, the better, the easier it makes for everything, for everybody involved. So that, that's all I have to say on that. Now, as far as you mentioned the transformer, I'm not a retired troubleshooter for Ameren. And there was no question about that, but with the transformer right there at the back end of his property, I can assure you it will not hinder Ameren as far as accessing that transformer whatsoever. The transformer opens up from the back, it would be behind like this is where the truck would be, his truck would be parked for a car. The transformer opens up from this end, so it won't hinder the access that transformer whatsoever. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there any questions for our speaker here? No? Thank you, sir. Are there any other individuals that would like to speak in favor or opposition to the request? Doesn't look like there's anyone here. Robin, is there anyone online?
Mr. Chair, again, I have two persons online at this time. If they would like to raise their hands to speak, they can. Mr. Chair, I see no raised hands.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I guess at this time, if anyone would like to hear an oral presentation of the department, we can do that. No? Okay. So if the department would like to make any final comments, that would be great.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the board, the department is supporting this request. We're taking the position that it's a reasonable accommodation for a person with a disability. And there are mitigating factors in this instance. The yards open to sky regulation was the intent behind it originally had to do with a complaint that had been received by the city about someone who was running their vehicle for extended periods of time next to their neighbor's window into their living area. And so it was creating a nuisance there. In this instance, that's not the case. The next door neighbor, their garage is positioned close to where this driveway expansion is proposed, as is their driveway. So that concern has been mitigated just by the positioning of their garage. The affected neighbor is neutral to this request. They have not voiced opposition to it, though they do not support it either. And we've noted that expanding the driveway on the other side of the dwelling would probably interfere with the aesthetics of the home and therefore the neighborhood in a way that would be undesirable. So again, we are supporting the request for those reasons.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. Are there any comments or discussion that we need to have as a board before we close and go to a vote? No? Okay, well then we will close the proceedings. Would someone like to make a motion to either approve, deny, or approve with conditions the requested variance?
I'll motion to approve.
Mr. Lux, thank you for the motion to approve the variance. Do I have a second? Okay, thank you, Mr. Reiner. So we will now do a roll call. Mr. Morris, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Lee, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Reiner, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Lux?
Approve.
And I also approve the variance request. Congratulations, Mr. Bell. Wish you the best. Okay, thank you. And now we move on. Is this the fourth one here? Yeah, fourth request. Go ahead, Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, the fourth request is BA 21-24, James and Katie Helms, 18402 Woodland Meadows Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038. Excuse me. Request an exception to the minimum yard requirements general for the purpose of constructing a 4-car attached garage, 1,410 square feet in area, and a second-story addition to the existing garage, 495 square feet in area upon the property being located at 18402 Woodland Meadows Drive. Locator number 25X540096, the Woodlands Meadows subdivision, lot 50, which would thereby authorize a front yard setback distance of 47 feet in lieu of 50 feet. The request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415.090 NU Non-Urban Resident District Regulations of the City of Wildwood.
Guys, you're cut out on me. I can't hear.
Take your time.
Okay, I can hear that. Try again.
The property is located in Ward 1. And before Ms. Keefe provides the slide presentation, I would like to enter the record the following. Chapter 400, Article 2 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Board of Adjustment. Chapter 415 of the same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the zoning ordinance, file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this request and all contents contained therein, including the department's report and recommendation. And then finally, any evidence or testimony offered as part of tonight's hearing on this matter. My apologies and thank you.
Okay, Ms. Keefe.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the board, our next case concerns a new proposed 4-car garage and second-story addition. The subject property of this request is located in the Woodland Meadows subdivision, located west of Highway 109 and south of Highway 100. The property is located on the southern side of Woodland Meadows Drive, which is a 50-foot roadway that's private and maintained by the collective homeowners of the subdivision. It was established at the time of platting the subdivision, which was 1978. And it also carries with it a 50-foot roadway easement, 25 feet of which is located on the subject lot. The subject lot is occupied by a single-family dwelling, which was built in 1986, and it has 2,700 feet of total square feet of total living area. It is zoned non-urban residence district, which does require a 50-foot setback from any roadway easement. The subject property has a varied topography, with its most level portion towards the front of it, descending from the roadway to the rear of the driveway, and then steeply descending 120 feet to the rear of the property. The lot is heavily wooded, except for the lawn area in the front yard. This is the subject residence looking southwest. This is the property survey with the existing improvements upon it. I just wanted to point out, here is the 25-foot roadway easement line on their property. And then, the building line is 50 feet, back from that. So there you go. These were plans submitted by the petitioner. They are proposing to build a 4-car garage in the area that is currently the end of their driveway, in the driveway turnaround. And then they're also building a 2nd story upon the existing garage. This project would require 3 feet of intrusion into the front yard setback area. The petitioner has been asked to provide additional detail concerning the driveway in association with these improvements, and this is what has been provided. This is a rendering and not an exact architectural drawing, but it gives you a sense of how the driveway would expand to serve the garage and then taper to the roadway. The dimensions of the garage are put it at 1,410 square feet in area. This is the existing dwelling. And then this is what the existing dwelling would look like with the garage addition and 2nd story addition. The garage doors on the sides are 7 feet in height, and in the middle, 8 feet in height. This is looking southeast at the subject residence. This is looking southwest on Woodland Meadows Drive. And this is looking southeast. This is looking southwest across the front yard. And this is looking across the street to the north. This is the same view to the north, situated back where the residence is located on the lot at the end of the petitioner's driveway. This is looking southeast from the top of the driveway to the rear yard of the property. And this is behind the residence, looking southwest. And finally, we're standing in that same general location, only we're looking north up at the rear of the driveway. This is looking south. There have been 4 setback variances approved in the general vicinity, and some of which have concerned front yard setbacks. And there is substantial public support for the request, given that according to the subdivision indentures, 2/3 of shareholders have to show support in order for this type of addition to be built. So that was provided by the applicant. And the department has also received 1 written comment in support. And then the neighbor across the street has also submitted comments. And they have requested a postponement while a code enforcement issue was resolved. But they have not come out necessarily against it, at least from what I've read. That letter has been provided to you, the board, via email. And that brings me to my conclusion. Director Vunich and I are available for questions at this time. Thank you.
And speaking of questions, are there any?
Just one real quick on the code enforcement issue. Is that an HOA procedural investigation, or is that a city code violation that's being looked into, like, formally? Do you know?
Well, the city of Wildwood has looked into it on a few different occasions and is being involved in it. Yes. As far as I know, I can't speak to the association on that.
So I do have a question too. On the diagram where the garage would be, was it just like the corner of the garage that encroached into the setback? I mean, it looked like the vast majority of the garage was outside of the setback. Is that? I see
That is
correctly?
correct. This is a fairly minor intrusion,
And just in that corner?
just
Yeah.
in that corner.
Okay, got it. Okay, just want to make sure we had that right. Any other questions for the department, Mr. Lee?
Yeah, you noted 25 feet of the 50 feet is on their property. So the road isn't centered in the easement, so that's another hardship.
Well, yes, and that is expressed in the department's recommendation on this matter, that that the building line is set 75 feet back into the lot. And because of the curve of the road, that restricts the front of it.
Okay.
I should, as a follow-up to my previous comments regarding the code enforcement issue, as far as I know, this has mainly been a conversation back and forth. It does not involve a court case, though Director Vunich can correct me if I am wrong.
The primary code enforcement officer has had discussions with the property owners, as Ms. Keefe mentioned, but I do not know of any of those conversations resulting in a warning notice or the next step, a summons being issued. If the board needs that information before making a decision, we could certainly provide it. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vunich and Ms. Keefe. Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite the petitioner to come forward and state your name, your address, your relationship to the property, and remember to get with the court reporter or recorder, I'm sorry, sworn in. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm Katie Helms. I'm an owner at 18402 Woodland Meadows Drive.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Helms, if you would explain the nature of the request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating the variance, that would be appreciated.
Our request is to create a garage addition that would be attached to the existing residence. It would be positioned where currently we have a side entry garage. So the driveway allows for the entry to the side. This garage would be a front entry garage, and it would be positioned in the same place as the end of our garage of our driveway. It does extend over that 50-foot setback line. It actually only, according to the architectural renderings, it only extends 9 inches, but we're asking for additional space because we haven't fully gone to the extent of building lines with the architect. So we just want to play it safe. It's only the corner of that. And then of course the driveway would be expanded to fit the width of the garage. It would then taper to the existing width of the driveway as it sits now where it meets the road. The mailbox is right there, so we can't keep that any wider. The reason that we want to do this is, first of all, because we're a household of 5, but we have 4 drivers right now, 4 vehicles, none of which are able to park in the garage. We have very little rough storage in our house as well. So the second story of the garage would be rough storage for us to use for necessary things that we need to store within our house. So with the addition of this garage, we would have a place for all of our vehicles to park, and we would have the storage necessary for the items within our household.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Helms. Are there any questions that the board has for the petitioner? No? Okay, thank you. You may have a seat. Are there any members in the audience or online that would like to speak in favor or opposition to the request? Now would be the time to do that.
Mr. Chair, I see no hand.
You don't see anything there? Okay. All right. Well, since there are no speakers who want to make a comment, is there any desire to hear an oral presentation of the department's report? Didn't think so. So if you would make your final comments, Ms. Keefe, that would be great.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the department is supporting this variance. It's a very minimal intrusion on a lot that does have a hardship associated with it, considering both the roadway easement and the related setbacks from the road, the curve of the road, as well as the topography back behind the home. It just restricts where you could put such an addition. 2/3 of the homeowners in the subdivision are in support of it. So the department is in support of it as well for these reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. Are there any comments or discussion that we need to have before we close the proceedings and head to a vote? No? Nope. All righty. In that case, we will close the proceeding. And I'm going to call for a vote. I would like to have a motion to approve, deny, or approve with conditions from any of the board members. Mr. Lee?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, there's our motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Morris, thank you for that second. Mr. Reiner, how do you vote?
Approve it.
Mr. Lux, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Morris, how do you vote?
Approved.
Mr. Lee, how do you vote?
Approve.
And I also approve. Congratulations, your variance request is granted. All right, I think we are ready to move on to number 5, I believe. The 5th request, Mr. Vunich, go ahead.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, the final item on tonight's agenda is BA 22-24, Daniel Hughes, 10 Rockwood Forest View, Wildwood, Missouri, 63025. Requests an exception to the minimum yard requirements general for the purpose of replacing an existing 3-tiered retaining wall system with a new single-tiered modular block structure type with a maximum height of 13 feet. Being upon the property located at 10 Rockwood Forest View, locator number 28V 530069, Rockwood Forest Subdivision, Plat 3, Lot 10, thereby authorizing a western side yard setback of 11 feet in lieu of the 30-foot standard. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415.090 NU Non-Urban Resident District Regulations. This property is located in Ward 6, and as with the previous 4 requests, before Ms. Keefe begins the presentation of slides, the department would like to enter into the record the following items. Chapter 415 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the zoning ordinance. Chapter 400 of the same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Board of Adjustment. That's Article 2. The file that has been developed and maintained by the department regarding this request and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation. And then finally, any evidence or testimony that is provided as part of tonight's hearing on this particular matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, our last case this evening concerns the replacement of an existing retaining wall with a new wall of a slightly different type, which we'll discuss. The subject site is located in the southern portion of Wildwood in the Rockwood Forest subdivision, which is located along Alt Road. The subject lot is 3 acres in size and was platted in 1978. It's an irregularly shaped property that's encumbered by a 25-foot roadway easement on 3 sides of it due to its location at the intersection of Rockwood Forest Glen and Rockwood Forest View. It is zoned non-urban residence district, which does require a 50-foot front yard setback from any roadway right-of-way line and 30 feet for side yard setbacks. There is a I apologize. The subject property is occupied by a single family dwelling that was built in 1993. It has 2,741 square feet of total living area. The topography, as is the trend this evening, is steeply sloped on this lot, with it descending from the top of the driveway to the rear of the lot 104 feet. The petitioner is requesting to replace an existing 3-tier tie retaining wall with a single-tier wall of the modular block type. The wall is to be a maximum of 13 feet in height. This would require authorization of a western side yard setback distance of 11 feet in lieu of 30 feet. And on here, that new retaining wall is depicted by this green line. These are the elevations that were provided for the wall and is provided to the board members as well in your packets. This is looking east from the top of the driveway down into the property. The residence is behind these trees. This is looking north on Rockwood Forest View. And this is looking south on that same road. This is entering into the driveway looking east. This is also an easterly direction. The retaining wall supporting the driveway is located behind those trees there. And that's a closer view of the existing wall. This is looking north at the wall, looking at the rear of the residence. This is looking southeast from the top of the wall. And this is looking south from the top of the wall. I do not have any information concerning previous variances. There are none associated with this property. And the department has received no letters in support or opposition for this request. That concludes my presentation at this time. If you have any questions, the department is available to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. Are there any questions from any of the board members for Ms. Keefe? No? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite the petitioner to come forward and state your name, your address, your relationship to the property, and then you'll be sworn in by the court reporter.
Dan Hughes, 10 Rockwood Forest View. I am the owner of the property.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. If you would explain the nature of your request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating the variance, that would be helpful.
Well, as you could kind of tell from the pictures, and as you've mentioned with the topography of the area, it's kind of hard to build there. It was put in 93 before we had the different setbacks. So with the current wall, as you notice, there was a tarp on it because the second tier of it has already failed on the wall. And I talked to the contractors that were coming in. It was one of those things that I said, I knew it was it was going to need to be replaced, but I said, I've driven by tie walls year after year, and every time I drove by, I'm like, that thing is going to fail, real soon. And you drive by 10 years later and it's still up. No, I didn't get the extra 10 years out of mine. So anyway, working with the engineer, so they came out and I said, okay, well, can we just rebuild it 3 tiers? Because they talked about the 6-foot levels. And they were like, you don't want to do that. I'm like, okay, why do I not want to do that? And they said, because if you start doing the 6 foots and even the smaller ones have built up, he said, you're gonna have to get way too close to your current driveway with the GeoGrid. So that's why they finally came back and they were like, okay, look, with the current condition it's in and the fact that it's supporting your driveway, we want to take and round it off. And then it will kind of, when it comes up the side, it kind of dies out where it's literally, I think the last blocks are like 2 feet high in the part that's the closest to the neighbors. So really with the way it's designed, talking to the engineers, I don't know that I have another option other than to build it the way he came up with without incurring great risk of potentially having, a big chunk of the driveway just fall out when they're trying to put the GeoGrid in. So, answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Are there any questions that the board would have for Mr. Hughes? No? Okay, thank you, sir. You may find your way back to your seat. This time we'll open the room for any speakers who are, I don't see anybody here or online that would like to speak in favor or in opposition to the variance request. Okay,
Ms. Keefe, I didn't hear what you said.
Then we do have a speaker, Mr. Chair, and I am promoting Ms. Burrell to a panelist.
okay, so if you would state your name, your address, relationship to the property, and then get sworn in by the court reporter, that would be what we do right now. Ms. Gorell, would you?
Yes, sorry. I'm Janine Gorell. And yes, I am here speaking on behalf of Dan Hughes at 10 Rockwood, Forest View, Wildwood.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Really, I just wanted to reiterate as the contractor who is with Dan and ready to complete this project when hopefully it is approved, that we have looked at this project. We worked closely with the engineer who Dan worked with and feel confident that with access, this is the best approach to take. It is really essential for him and the structure of his driveway to build it in this manner. And we've built a number of walls and feel that to go in a different route would just compromise the entity of the property, which he's trying to enhance and improve. And so as the contractor, I just like to reiterate that this is the best approach to take in our opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Gorell, for that. Any comments or questions for the speaker from the board? Okay, thank you, Ms. Gorell. Are there any other speakers on Zoom that would like to? Okay, so that takes care of that. Anyone want to hear a presentation of the department's report? No? All right, so if the department would like to make final comments, this would be the time.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the department is supporting this request. It is a matter of safety, in our opinion, as well as there being a physical hardship on the property. Given the steep topography, the existence of the roadway easement, the setbacks, the fact that it was built prior to the incorporation of Wildwood. There's also a lot of mitigating factors just in that with the substantial tree cover there, there's not, in our opinion, the impact will be fairly minimal. There's already a wall at the location. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. Are there any final comments or questions from the board? Okay, well then we will close this proceeding and call for a vote. I will need a motion to approve, deny, or approve with conditions. Okay, we have that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Morris? Okay, got a second from Mr. Morris. So let's do our vote. Mr. Lux, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Morris, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Reiner, how do you vote? Mr. Lee?
Approve.
And I also approve. Your variance request is granted. Good luck with the wall. I think that pretty much concludes the cases that we need to deal with tonight. However, there are a few more items on the agenda. 3 additional items that I see. First of all, we need to review and approve the minutes of the board's July 18th, 2024 meeting. I'm assuming that you all had an opportunity to thoroughly read and study those minutes. Okay. I will need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Lux, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lee, thank you. We'll just do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Our second item of business is an update on BA 1224, which was the Billy John's request. So I think the department has some information for us.
Yes, sir. The department thought it appropriate that it provide an update to the board, given how much time was invested in this particular case. I believe there were 4 meetings in total. First, shortly after the board's decision to deny the variance, a for sale sign was placed on the property, and the department has actually met with another potential buyer. They are looking at doing a barn dominium, and I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly, but basically it would be a stable with living quarters above it. And that particular individual actually already lives in the subdivision and for the most part has gotten support of his neighbors. So we'll see where that goes. Additionally, Doug Nance with Lombardo Homes contacted the department, and Mr. Johns has found a couple of other properties that they are investigating. So hopefully that'll be successful for the Johns and they can find a good lot for their dream home here in the city of Wildwood. So that's the update.
Wow, that could be like a happy ending, right?
We are keeping our fingers crossed on
Yeah. Okay. Would the stable house or living quarters, would that also require a variance?
Actually, we have talked about that, and it does appear that the 50-foot setback will still come into play, but it's a much smaller footprint. And the intent, again, because of the low sill, not being a residential structure, they don't have to do fill. Living quarters on the second story, so they'll easily meet the 2 foot of freeboard.
Huh. Look at that.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, I think all of us wish the best for Mr. Johns, and hopefully he can find a little bit better location for his dream house. So that's good. That's great.
Yeah. So hopefully, as the chair mentioned, we'll have a happy ending to the story for everybody.
Okay. Well, that's a great update. We like those kind. Then the third item of additional business is an update on the Board of Adjustment draft bylaws.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, as you'll recall, after one of our meetings, we had a training session with our city attorney, and much to the chagrin of the department, we discovered that really we don't have a good set of bylaws for the Board of Adjustment. The charge from the board was to develop those bylaws, and just to update you, we haven't forgotten about it. We haven't gotten very far along with it, but our commitment to you is to have them to you before the end of the year. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So it's in process. It's just going to take a little more time. Yeah. You're fine. You're fine. Thank you for that update. Okay, I do not think we have anything else on the agenda. Take a look at my notes here. No. Okay, so I guess I request a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Mr. Lux, okay. And a second? Mr. Lee, thank you. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. This meeting is concluded. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you to the department for your hard work. Appreciate that.
Certainly, you're very welcome. And Robin and I would like to thank you for your attendance. And if you came Main Street tonight, you noticed that you had a bit of a detour. That's because on Saturday, we have Celebrate Wildwood. The department would like to extend an invitation to you all to attend. We'll have a city tent, so even if you come by, we'll make sure you get a meal